more. Well, they pretty much live up to that model. Sugar dominates the North American diet. It takes a special kind of discipline to basically protect your teeth from all that sugary stuff that is around. So, what is the word that's getting out so far? What is the word that gets to you here in Carleton Place? South of the border, the American Dental Association keeps a tight rein on dentists who ask too many questions about fluoridation health effects. Section 20 of the ADA Code of Ethics says that dentists' non-participation in fluoridation promotion is overt neglect of professional responsibility. If you're a dentist who speaks the wrong words about fluoridation, you could lose your license. A little closer to home, in July 9, 2009, at a council meeting in Thunder Bay, Councillor Linda Reinholm asked the question of Dr. Frank Stecky, then president of the Royal College of Dental Surgeons of Ontario. Her question was, if a dentist wanted to publicly appear and voice his or her concern about water fluoridation, would his or her license be in jeopardy? Dr. Stecky replied, it could be in jeopardy. The councillor followed by asking this, given what you've told us, is there a likelihood that any local dentist would come forward and speak about their concerns? Would that dentist be at risk? Dr. Stecky answered, if a dentist came to your next meeting talking against fluoridation and made any of the unsubstantiated claims being heard here today, no question they would be at risk. No question. In the province of Ontario, it appears that all dentists must sing from the same songbook, whether they like the tune or not. Still discussing how the word is getting out, the Association of Local Public Health Agencies, ALPHA, issued a statement 2 years ago at a meeting in Toronto. ALPHA members include medical and associate medical officers of health and senior public health managers. During that meeting, members were told that health unit staff and officials need to be in support of the public health view of fluoridation. There is no place for personal views on fluoridation. In Ontario, medical officers of health are under some pressure to deliver a fluoridation message that may not be their own. They are required to mimic health policy. Now that's unfair to them as medical professionals, and it's unfair to you who require to seek their unencumbered advice. As they get closer to the end, in 2003, the EPA recognized that there was information surfacing about the negative health effects attributed to fluoridation. They commissioned the National Research Council of the National Academies to conduct a thorough review of existing studies and literature. They reviewed 1,077, I counted them. After more than 3 years of analysis, the NRC released its report titled Fluoride in Drinking Water, a scientific review of EPA's standards. The NRC had seen enough. Its 500-page report sent an urgent message to governments and public health to fast-track research into fluorides linked with cancers, hypothyroidism, bone fracture prevalence, joint pain, and injuries of the brain, such as autism, behavioral problems, and IQ deficits. The links between fluoride and cancers were particularly worrisome. Dr. Kathleen Thiessen, one of the co-authors of the report, said that the evidence was compelling enough that all 12 members of the expert panel agreed that fluoride appears to have the potential to initiate and promote cancers. Now, Health Canada dismissed this report, claiming that the NRC focused on concentrations much higher than normally seen in Canadian drinking water. Well, Dr. Thiessen disagrees. She clarified, many of the cancer studies and Down syndrome studies involved fluoridated water between 0.7 and 1.2 milligram per liter. The discussion of bodily reactions to fluoride involved the whole exposure range. Health Canada has available 13 separately publicly funded research institutes focused on everything from cancer to aging. All are under the umbrella of the Canadian Institutes of Health Research. It appears that not a one was mobilized to look into the NRC's warnings about water fluoridation. Health Canada did answer the NRC report in a manner. In 2007, it gathered a handful of pro-fluoride researchers together, called them the Fluoride Expert Panel, and had them conduct a weighted evidence review of fluoridation literature. A year later, they released their report that in many ways is a complete reversal of the NRC's findings. Health Canada's Fluoride Expert Panel concluded that there was no credible evidence anywhere linking fluoridation to any adverse health effects other than occasional mild fluorosis. When you take everything into account, there are a number of things that Carleton Place residents are asked to keep in mind. One, fluoridation health risks are the findings of impartial researchers who have investigated fluoride's effects on tissue throughout the body, not just the oral cavity. No person and no organization has supplied proof that it is safe to ingest low concentrations of an enzyme poison in your drinking water. Painting a smiley face on fluoride doesn't change what it is. Even the new optimum concentration of 0.7 mil per liter is an arbitrary setting. It's not based on scientific evaluation. It's based on consensus of dental opinion. EPA scientists are still waiting for the proof that fluoride is a cavity preventer. For 30 years, they've been waiting, and no one has stepped forward with anything that they find useful. Your babies, your infants are at greatest risk of fluoride toxicity. Their little immune systems are still in the formative stage. A Harvard study released in 2012 indicated that children may be far less tolerant of fluoride than are adults. Pound for pound, infants and children drink more than 2.5 times as much water as adults. A formula-fed infant consumes 1/7 its body weight in water every day. I didn't know any of this when my son was young. I want you to know it now. Counselors and residents of Carleton Place, you have much to consider. Be selfish of your health. Ask hard questions from your own head. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Charlotte. Robert Fleming.
Sheldon is a tough act to follow. It's hard, very sincere, very much what
Can't hear you.
Is this better? Sheldon is a powerful speaker and a very genuine man. I've known him for quite some time now. He cares very much about his son.
Can't hear you.
That was good.
You want to take, Robert, you want to take the other mic over there?
I'll just lean into it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Nice.
So I am going to cover two areas tonight. One is the legal status of fluoridation in the province of Ontario, and the other will be to present 5 key scientific research papers done on Canadian population of fluoridation. Some of the papers done by 2 of the 6 expert member panel, and they don't show that fluoridation works very well. So we'll start with the law first of all. So we're not only contemplating fluoridation, but a particular kind of fluoridation, hydrofluorosilicic acid, which contains fluorosilicates plus trace contaminants. And those are arsenic, lead, mercury, and radioactive materials, all co-located in the phosphate-rich rock in the phosphate mining industry. There is no other use for hydrofluorosilicic acid whatsoever, so the industry finds it very convenient to get us to pay for it and drink it. Health Canada and the U.S. Centers for Disease Control concede, and Dr. Cooney's in front of me, and I invite him to challenge me if I misspeak, because he and I have debated each other in many towns. Concede, swallowing fluoridation has very little effect on reducing dental caries. Health Canada's former Chief Dental Officer of Health, who's now, I believe, the dental advisor, I think Dr. Cooney, admits a lifetime of swallowing fluoridated water results in less than 1 whole cavity reduction per person, which is also corroborated by our very own Statistics Canada. For decades, Health Health Canada and others have said fluoridation is natural, like calcium fluoride in groundwater, while remaining utterly silent on the industrial waste product that is actually used to fluoridate. Not something you do when you're proud of the product you use to fluoridate. You should be announcing your pride in that product if you stand behind it, not hiding it from the public. Health Canada has finally been forced to admit it does not conduct toxicology studies of fluorosilicates. Health Canada has also been forced to admit human health harm toxicology research has never been conducted on hydrofluorosilicic acid. Health Canada further admits hydrofluorosilicic acid is not regulated under Canada's Food and Drug Act, nor is it regulated under Canada's Natural Health Product Regulations. Excuse me. The United States Centers for Disease Control says while it promotes water fluoridation policy, it does not determine safe levels of fluoride in drinking water. Ontario's Safe Drinking Water Act subscribes to the NSF Standard 60 for fluoridation chemical certification. Remarkable, when NSF Standard 60 does nothing to determine whether hydrofluorosilicic acid is either safe or effective for human consumption. Moreover, the National Sanitation Foundation has stated it shall not incur obligations, liability, damages, or other pertaining to the use, interpretation, or reliance upon Standard 60. Doesn't give you much confidence in their confidence, does it? Ontario's Safe Drinking Water Act exists to ensure drinking water remains safe and without health hazards. And Section 19, which came into effect January 1st of this year, raised that standard of care, extending it to municipal councils now. The councils and council members are to be accountable and liable for what they permit into the drinking water system. Ontario's Safe Drinking Water Act, Section 20, subsection 1, indicates that nothing is allowed into the drinking water system if it could result in a drinking water health hazard. Section 20, subsection 2b, is often used to defend water fluoridation as a statutory authority, then quickly pointing to the Ontario Fluoridation Act. Section 20, subsection 3 points to the argument of dilution being no defense when adding something into the drinking water system which again could, not will, not shall, not does, could result in a health hazard. Section 166 is very clear, resolving how any conflict between the acts must be handled, whereby the Ontario Safe Drinking Water Act prevails over other acts unless the other acts expressly state they prevail over the Safe Drinking Water Act. The Fluoridation Act does not expressly state this, and therefore it does not prevail over the Safe Drinking Water Act. And the Safe Drinking Water Act continues to override the Fluoridation Act despite what's going on in our province. Moreover, Ontario's Fluoridation Act only pertains to a fluoridation system, equipment, materials, and compound for releasing, quote, fluoride ions, unquote, into the drinking water, while it remains silent on what chemical compound the municipality actually chooses to use. Ontario's Fluoridation Act also remains silent on why we put this in the water. And that's relevant for this reason. In 1957, the Supreme Court of Canada has made a ruling, third court case, highest court of the land, now Supreme Court of Canada, that fluoridating municipal drinking water is compulsory preventative medication of the inhabitants, and further ruled that current statutory provisions would need to be changed to confer this intention before Ontario councils could continue to pass bylaws to fluoridate. Yet, Ontario's Fluoridation Act has since, and to this day, remained utterly silent on why we put these fluoride ions into drinking water. Decidedly, the Supreme Court of Canada has said it's compulsory preventative medication of the local inhabitants. Ontario's Safe Drinking Water Act is about treating drinking water. It is not about treating people. And subject to this 1957 Supreme Court of Canada ruling, we have never subjected fluoridation chemicals to drug testings, medication, drug trials, medication, drug approvals, medication. Presently, municipal councils largely believe they still hold ultimate authority on whether or not to fluoridate. And in that regard, council may still be all that protects you as Carleton Place citizens and all that protects itself. Moreover, for an Ontario council to vote in favor of a local referendum, given the present circumstance, it could be viewed as enabling others to break the law, voting to medicate or not medicate their friends and their neighbors. While much about municipal water fluoridation and fluoridation chemicals remains, as you can see, unlegislated and unregulated, council and municipalities remain tightly legislated and regulated. With that in mind, here's some information which may help take some of the pressure off council and off this community. Know that public health always claims, wherever I go throughout Canada, always claims water fluoridation is safe and effective, but never actually gets down to proving it. Did you see any proof of $1 saves $38? Did you see any calculations? Did you see how the costs were incurred, how the costs were weighed? No, you were just told $1 saves $38. Well, if Health Canada claims were supported by Canadian peer-reviewed fluoridation research, I might even welcome Health Canada's marketing efforts here tonight. Yet the facts, local facts, from Canada's own research, show fluoridation is not working. For example, David Locker, 1999, University of Toronto Faculty of Dentistry. Their report, and this was done, by the way, I should add, for Community Public Health Services, and for Health Canada's First Nations and Inuit Nation Health Branch. And they quote the following conclusion. Quote, although current studies of the effectiveness of water fluoridation have design weaknesses and methodological flaws, the balance of evidence suggests that rates of dental decay are lower, I know that sounds great, but you gotta wait for it, in fluoridated versus non-fluoridated communities. But here's the rest of the quote. The magnitude of the fluoridation effect is not large in absolute terms, is often not statistically significant, and may not be of clinical significance. In other words, not achieving all the wonderful things we saw tonight on the screen that we're hoping water fluoridation will achieve. It also goes on to say that Canadian research goes on to say, under Dr. Clark and Dr. Levy, and I want to tell you, actually I'll say it for the punchline. Let's see if you can guess where this is going. 2001, Dr. Clark and Dr. Levy compared the prevalence and incidence of dental caries across thousands of school children in fluoridation-dependent communities versus still fluoridated communities in British Columbia. And what did Clark and Levy find? Quote, the prevalence of caries assessed in 5,927 children, grades 2, 3, 8, and 9, decreased over time in the fluoridation-ended community, while remaining unchanged in the fluoridated community. The quote goes on. Caries incidence, dental decay incidence, assessed in 2,994 lifelong residents, grade 5, 6, 11, and 12, was not different between the still fluoridated and fluoridation-ended communities. Now we'll go to 2006, Clark and Levy again. These researchers were still looking at the very same BC population, and they were looking at changes in dental fluorosis rates, and you've heard what that is. It's the noticeable modeling of tooth enamel, which, if severe enough, damages the teeth and can make them more susceptible even to decay. And dental fluorosis is important because the pro side and the no side of fluoridation agree on one thing and one thing only. Dental fluorosis is an accepted biomarker of ingesting too much fluoride. Both sides, that's the only thing we agree on. But that biomarker is useful. Quote, Clark and Levy, when fluoride was removed from the water, the prevalence and severity of dental fluorosis scores decreased significantly. Now you heard tonight, water fluoridation does not cause dental fluorosis. It matters not. It's not an issue. And yet, these researchers find that when you turn water fluoridation off, and when you switch the pump on the fluoridation feed station, the other variables don't change in the community. Socioeconomic status is the same, eating habits, lifestyle, earnings, job, toothbrushing, mentoring, dental care, all of that's the same. But you might want to say, well, was there heightened vigilance? Did somebody say, well, fluoridation is off, we need to take some fluoride in and other measures in order to get the cavity rates down in this fluoridation-ended community? Well, they controlled for that and found that, in fact, with the dental fluorosis rates going down, they didn't and couldn't have taken alternative sources of fluoride internally. Dental fluorosis rates don't drop if you top up on fluoridation that you just got rid of in the water. So it's a very clear, strong, methodologically sound, variable controlled, statistically significant study here in Canada. Look at these studies together. What do we know? When fluoride is shut off, caries rates decline and continue to decline, and dental fluorosis rates also decline. And since swallowing too much fluoride causes dental fluorosis, you know for certain populations swallowing less fluoride from drinking water, and know the alternative sources of fluoride are not being swallowed either. Quote, indeed, Clark and Levy agree with this. That was my interpretation, and they agree. Here's their quote. The use of fluoride supplements and fluoride dentifrice also decreased during this study period, end quote. Now, despite their own research findings, Clark and Levy, having then been placed on Health Canada's 2007-2008 fluoridation expert panel, alongside 4 other expert members, shared in a unanimous support for Canadian water fluoridation policy, which is quite remarkable when their own research, which is published, peer-reviewed, says otherwise. Now, just 1 year before that, in 2007, a gentleman by the name of Dr. Ito produced his Carleton and Brampton fluoridation study conducted in Peel region. Excuse me again. Ito's research found, quote, the effect of fluoridation on caries in these communities was not evident given the matching of fluoridated Brampton schools to the higher socioeconomic status of Carleton schools, end quote. So, Ito's research had demonstrated that the socioeconomically challenged children in Brampton have no better and no worse teeth than do the affluent and advantaged children in Carleton. Now, this is a very significant discovery when recalling that fluoridation's early beginnings wrapped itself in claims that fluoridation helps the poorest and the most vulnerable children, the socioeconomically challenged. And here we see it's not helping them at all. Add to this that Dr. Ito remains one of Ontario's most ardent and outspoken fluoridation promoters to this day. It's no surprise, though, since Dr. Ito is an active member and a recent past president of the Association of Local Public Health Agencies.
Robert, can I just stop you for a minute? I just want to, we've gone over time here, so I just want to ask council. Okay, sorry.
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine.
So the members of the Association of Local Public Health Agencies are the 36 health units across Ontario, which of course includes medical officers of health, associate medical officers of health, and the senior public health managers. Now, as you've heard, Alpha certainly has its basis sewn up by sort of having every public health authority in the province as a member. But there's a problem, because Alpha controls what their members say about fluoridation, and I'm going to quote this again. Sheldon had it in his presentation, but I'm going to quote this again. Health unit staff and officials need to be aware of key messages in support of the public health view of fluoridation. There is no place for personal views on fluoridation. 2011, this was decided. No place for personal views. Shouldn't highly educated people like medical officers of health be expected to think their own thoughts, read their own science, and provide independent and educated opinion? If independent thinking is not allowed, then what have we got? Why script public health people and also caution them not to go off script? There's not my words. This is the resolution. So in closing, I'll share just one last University of Toronto faculty and dentistry research paper. Dr. Azar Pazou at UDS looked at oral health consequences of any water fluoridation, and notably his 2 research supervisors were Dr. Leek, the head of Dental Public Health, University of Toronto, and Dr. Stewart, the Director of Dental Services, Toronto Public Health. And this doctor's study, Dr. Azar Pazou's study, survey of global fluoridation, found the following, quote, a global decrease in caries has occurred, a global decrease in dental caries, dental cavities has occurred regardless of fluoridation status. These are his words. Quote, despite a historical interpretation that removal of fluoride would result in an increase in dental caries, the findings of these studies do not support this claim. Appreciate your time. I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you very much.
We've gone over time, so I'm going to leave it up to council as to how you feel we should progress this.
May I suggest that we have two other people who have registered to speak, so we listen to them and then we take questions from council first.
Okay.
See how the turn goes.
Everybody okay with that? All right. Could we have our registered speakers, please? Approach the mic and identify yourself, please, David. Just go to that mic there, please.
Good evening, members of council.
Sure, okay, come on up here. Come on up here.
I will be 5 minutes. I won't take up much of your time. Can you hear me? Good evening, members of council and observers. Thank you very much for allowing me to address you this evening. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Dr. David Stevenson, and I am speaking this evening as a concerned dentist who has been serving our community for the past 22 years. I'm also joined by some of my dental colleagues and staff who are here to indicate their support for water fluoridation in Carleton Place. Although I'm a member of the board of directors for the Ontario Dental Association, my address is from the perspective of someone who has chosen to both live and work in this community. I would like to begin by talking about the importance and value of community water fluoridation for the people of our town. And to tell you certainly that fluoride, in the optimal amount, like we have here in Carleton Place, is both safe and effective. There's no current peer-reviewed science that suggests to me otherwise. As a dentist, I'm asking you as councillors to base any decision regarding our community health on current, legitimate, peer-reviewed science. As experts in oral health, dentists in the dental profession take our job of educating patients very seriously, and this includes the benefits and safety of optimally fluoridated water. Our knowledge on this issue